What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journos, Comics, and Pop Culture, and today we are asking the question, what are blue chip keys? That's right, the term blue chip keys gets thrown around in this hobby probably every day. So today, we're going to talk about it. If you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, though, please take some time to do so. Check out all the awesome links below as well, including how you can become a Patreon member of the channel for only $3.99 a month, and the option of becoming a YouTube channel member for only $1.99 a month. Awesome perks involved in both memberships, plus you get to help support the channel. And while we're at it, I'm just going to take a moment to give a big shout out to all my members. First off, my Patreon members, I have to give a big thank you to each and every one of you for the continued support every single month. Again, you know, you guys really help grow my channel. Every dollar that I get goes back into my channel one way or the other. Right now, I am looking at investing into some possible equipment to help the audio quality of my work that I produce for you all. So again, a really big thank you to each and every one of you. If you guys are interested in becoming a Patreon member, the link is below. Like I said, it's only $3.99 a month. Also, a big thank you to all my YouTube channel members. Again, that's only $1.99 a month. All of you, I just launched this not even 2 months ago. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you day in and day out, the constant support. Thank you so much. But for all of you that are here today, I appreciate you all as well. So let's get into this topic of discussion. Now, this question was brought to me by somebody that was watching a video and just left a comment. Hey, I hear you talk about blue chip keys. What does that mean? So I said, I'm going to make a video about it. All right. So let's first start out with a base definition of what a blue chip comic is. Now, before I read this definition, I do want to state the term blue chip. This has been around as a term outside of comic books, right? It's for basically any industry. You could talk about blue chip businesses. When investing, you could talk about blue chip stocks and so forth. But let's read what it means as a blue chip comic book. Quote, a comic that, as an investment, has proven itself to be low risk, high reward, and can sustain market fluctuation periodically while gaining constant long-term value. All right. I'm going to repeat that just one more time, just so we have it down. A blue chip comic is a comic that, as an investment, has proven itself to be low risk, high reward, and can sustain market fluctuation periodically while gaining constant long-term value. All right, so obviously there's a lot of finance lingo right in here. So you might still be a little confused. Okay, I get that, big fancy words, but what does that all mean? So let's try to break it down piece by piece. Now, obviously, if you're just into comic books because you want to buy some books and you want to read them and you don't care about the condition or the value, then you might not be concerned with the term blue chip, but a lot of us are. So let's first look at what it means on the stock market to be blue chip. So what is a blue chip stock? And we could see some variables here. Some of them relate to a blue chip comic, some of them don't. So you got consistent returns. All right. What does a consistent return mean? What is a return? Basically, a return is a profit on your investment. So, to be a blue chip stock, you have to have consistent returns. How does that relate to a blue chip comic book? Well, like it says in the definition, high reward. That means basically consistent return. And where it says right down at the bottom, while gaining constant long-term value. Constant long-term value is consistent return because year after year, as time passes, you're going to be seeing higher profits, a higher return on your initial investment, right? Look what it says next here for a blue chip stock, low risk. Well, what does it say for a blue chip comic? Has proven itself to be low risk. What does that mean? Low risk means that it's, looking at stocks, you have conservative stocks, right? Then you have moderate stocks, then you have high risk stocks. A low risk investment means there's a smaller amount of risk of you losing money out of your initial investment. All right. So basically, blue chip means if it's proven that if you put money into this investment, most likely you aren't going to lose money. There's very low risk that you're going to lose money. All right. The next thing for blue chip stock is high dividend payout. That doesn't really pertain to comic books, so we're just going to skip over that. Next is decent returns during bearish markets. Now, this does pertain to comic books, and I'm going to speak to what a bearish market means. For those that don't understand market lingo and finance lingo, there's really two types of main markets. It's a bearish and a bullish market. Okay, we're going to bring up. I love this animation here. All right, this animation is funny. So you got a bull market. So it's breaking a bull market down is a market that's leaving the investors very optimistic, right? Because usually prices go up. They use a kind of a analogy here of a bull, puts his head and puts his horns, up to to buck whatever he's, fighting. So the head and the horns are going upward, where a bear stomps down, So in a bear market, it's more of a pessimistic market. Prices are going down and it's not a good look, right? So again, when we go back to decent returns during a bear market, a bearish market, meaning that a blue chip investment, so a blue chip comic, even when market trends might be going down, you're still not really losing out on your investment. You still, regardless of if it's climbing or maybe it's just stagnating, you still have a solid return on investment, say if you were wanting to sell during a bearish market. So let's look at this image. This is awesome because we have so much talk right now about, oh, the market's going to crash and everything that's going on in the market right now, it's not sustainable. It's market manipulation. It's this and that. I talk about it all the time. And then you get people using these terms that I don't think they really understand. And this is a lovely example of what a healthy market does. What do you notice here? I love the graphics. A bull market is in the green. It's where you see a steady flow of increases, right? The bear market is in the red, where you see dips. All right? And you can see a trend here. Green, red, green, red, green, red. What are some of those trends within the green and red? Well, the green periods within the market are usually longer than the red, and also the green periods see a higher increase than the red periods see a decrease. So what does that mean? Thresholds. I talk about this all the time. Even when the red period ends, look at each red period. The red period dips and it ends at a value that is still higher than the lowest part of the previous green. So what does that mean? That's a healthy market. That's healthy ebb and flow. So that's why if you look at the market right now, with the way comics are booming and key comics are booming, a lot of them are, even if there's a cool-off period and it dips down, there's going to be thresholds. And that's what we call a bearish market. And what happens during bearish markets? People may panic or sell off, but then prices drop some, and more people say, oh, look, now I can afford that book that was going for $2,000. I can afford it for $500 less. I might buy it now. Boom. And what does that then do? It starts to generate the next phase of the market, which is another bull period. All right? So, ebb and flow, healthy market. Now, let's ask this question. Can modern comics be blue chip comics? All right, I'm going to tell you one thing. There's no industry definition of this. There's no black and white, yes or no. All right? But, and like it says here, there are no defined time limits to what defines a blue chip comic. So essentially, yeah, modern comics can be blue chip comics. There's a but there, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, first off, let's define modern comic book. I'm sorry, but on my channel, and when I'm expressing the ages of comic books, a modern comic book isn't a comic book that came out in 1991. A modern comic book isn't a comic book that came out in the 80s. All right? The Copper Age lasted until 1992. And as far as I'm concerned, even the rest of the 90s at this point aren't modern comics. We are 21 years removed, 22 years removed from the 90s. So to call any year in the 90s modern, now there's a lot of elements that went into the changing of comic books when we got into the new millennium. So when I talk about modern comics, I really talk about the 2000s, over the last 21, 22 years. You might want to throw, later 90s books in there, but I'm absolutely not talking about early 90s or 80s books at all. Those are not modern comics. So there's absolute blue chip keys coming out of the late 80s and early 90s, specifically couple that I can say off the top of my head. Amazing Spider-Man number 300, Batman Adventures number 12, Amazing Spider-Man number 361. You can even look at New Mutants 98. So, there are definitely books that I personally would consider blue chip keys because they've been around long enough. And why? Because time matters. Time absolutely matters. So put any comic book to the test, okay? Does it have consistent returns? All right. Is it low risk? And can it withstand a bearish market? So how do you test those things? Well, time, right? Now, let's look at Ultimate Fallout 4. Ultimate Fallout 4 is a book that you can argue has all these factors: consistent returns, low risk, and withstands a bearish market. Now, why does it have consistent returns? Because if you go back to when it came out, 2011, this book never really lost value. It may have small ebb and flows here and there, but remember, up until about a little over a year ago, this book in a high grade, in a 9.8, was still valued, under $400. So, and that's CG Seed. So if you look at, that's about almost 10 years of it being on the market. It had consistent returns. All right. Now, is it low risk? Absolutely, because those two things correlate. Consistent returns correlates with low risk. So if you were to invest in an Ultimate Fallout 4 between the time it came out in 2011 to, say early 2020, pre-COVID, it's low risk because you're not really losing money out on that investment. Does it withstand a bearish market? So you could say yes there too, because there's been ebb and flow throughout those years as well. Now, keep in mind, though, the health of the overall market had been constantly moving upward between 2011 and 2020, peaking at 2019. Not peaking like it would stop, but it hit a record highs, because obviously it peaked in 2020 as well. So obviously, Ultimate Fallout 4 has all these factors, so you can consider Ultimate Fallout 4 a blue chip key. But here's where people would argue and why Ultimate Fallout 4 runs more risk than, say, New Mutants 98 or Amazing Spider-Man 300 or Hulk 181 or Giant Size X-Men number 1, or obviously I'm going farther back, Spider-Man number 1, Fantastic Four number 1, Amazing Fantasy 15, or Detective Comics 27, or Superman number 1, or Action Comics number 1. I'm going farther and farther back. The longer a book has been on the market, the more time there is to judge these factors on, the more validity the book has to be in a blue chip key. So ultimately, time is a defining factor that quantifies blue chip characteristics. Again, time is a defining factor that quantifies blue chip characteristics. So you see here we got Edge of Spider-Verse. Number 2, first appearance of Spider-Gwen. And then we got Amazing Spider-Man number 129, first appearance of Punisher. Obviously, Amazing Spider-Man number 129 is more quantifiable as a blue chip key just because it's been around for 43 years now. whereas Into the Spider-Verse has been around for just over 5 years. So, although, even Into the Spider-Verse may have quantifiable data of short term, it doesn't really give us paint a picture of long term, especially when you see the margin of growth. Now, even with UF4, the margin of growth for these books, these modern books, have grown almost exponentially over the last year. So that margin of growth can be concerning to investors because they say, well, even though it's grown in value over, say, the first 4 or 5 years of it being on the market, or for Ultimate Fallout 4, the first 9 or 10 years on the market, it still had growth. That growth, in terms of percentage-wise, was nothing in terms of the growth that it had over the last year. So that can prove these books to absolutely be more risky, right? But look, any book, even what's actually quantifiable as a blue chip key, like a Bronze Age key or a Silver Age key, even those books, and we've seen it, those books have had marginal growths that have blown years past growth out of the water. So there's high risk there too, and that's why everyone is so afraid of this current market. Oh, it's not sustainable, it's going to crash, because even blue chip keys that are solidified blue chip keys have, increased so fast in terms of their value on the market. Look at a CGC 9.8, Hulk 181 has almost doubled in value over the last 14 months. It went from about a $19,000 fair market value to about a $40,000 value, fair market value. That's absolutely nuts. So I'm not going to get into that. That's not what this video is about. We're focusing on what defines a blue chip key. So from there, ultimately, like I said, we got to look at time. So let's look at Hulk 181. And this looks like that image that I showed of the bear and the bull, and how we see ebb and flow in a healthy market. So you look at this graph here, and this is, I know it's only 9 years. It's a sample size. It goes back to 2012, right? But you can see over this time period, and this is all the sales for a CGC 8.5 fair market value. All right, this is specific individual books moving day to day, week to week. Look at what it does. It goes up. So you could say that this book is operating in a bull market, and then it dips for a little while. Bear market. Up, bull, down a little, bear. Up, down, up, down. And what you see here, just like I said about that image about the bull and the bear market, is your bull periods are longer and more steep than your bear period. So even though there's cool off periods over the long term, there's a gradual increase in value. So again, this book, and look, if we went back to the 80s and watched what this book has done on the market, you would see the same thing, constant growth. So there it is, everyone. That is my take on what defines a blue chip key. I really hope that this helped you all, had a better understanding of what a blue chip comic is if you didn't know before and you wanted more insight. So remember, you got to look at all the qualifying factors, all right? And you got to really measure time. I've always said this too. There's no definition written in stone on how we can quantify or qualify. Modern books in general, though, everyone, are going to be more volatile. They are going to have higher risks. So I would just be hesitant to call an Ultimate Fallout 4 blue chip key at this point. Personally, I'd want to give it maybe 5 more years. But I'm going to stand firm, and I'm going to say Ultimate Fallout 4 is that book of the modern generation. I've said it before, I'll say it again. So anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you all thought of this video in your comments below. Let me know if you have any other questions. Again, appreciate you all. If you aren't subscribed, please take the time to do so. Check the notification bell off too to make sure you're getting notified if YouTube even sends you notifications, because I know sometimes they don't. Again, thank you so much to all my members, my YouTube members, my Patreon members. Be well, and until next time.